She always sings about her night. Sometimes you wonder if everything's alright. The voice is loud and clear, and always about something you need to hear. Yeah, she's the lady of the wind, living and standing in the shadows of once been. Still, she's making her dreams come true. Fortune's alive in me and you. Yeah, these are our voices. These are our voices. It's you and me and everything in between. Our voices. Yeah, we're the fire of the heart, and all of forever in a brand new start, reclaiming what's always been, writing our days on that wind. These are our voices. These are our voices. It's you and me and everything in between. Our voices. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell her you need her. Tell her you'd really, really love to meet her. Stomping our feet to the music, wine dripping down from a glass, and drawing the possibilities, living through lifetimes past. These are voices. These are voices. Yeah, it's you and me and everything in between. Our voices. Yeah, yeah. These are voices. These are voices. Well, it's you and me and everything in between. Our voices. These are voices. These are voices. Oh, oh, oh. It's you and me and everything in between. Our voices. Oh, oh, oh. It's you and me and everything in between. It's you and me and everything in between. It's you and me and everything in between. It's you and me and everything in between.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Lisa, because she gives an example of something that I want to talk about today, which is that we stand on the shoulder of giants. And Eddie Watkins being an amazing musician, and Beverly being an amazing musician, and Joel and all those that we have, they lift people up. And in that lifting up, when anyone is lifted up, we're all lifted up. That's kind of, I want you to get your head around that, because if there's one life and that life is God's life, when life is lifted, we're lifted. What happens in a spiritual community is that we not only talk to each other, but we lift each other, whether we're aware of it or not. When you shift and you have an aha and you have good happen, nice trip to Washington, D.C., by the way, young lady. I've never wanted to go until I saw your pictures. You lifted me up. You see, by our very lives, we lift each other up. We lift each other up and others up when we give to the giving tree, when we support people that are homeless or with little money. It's a process, and it feels good, and it's important We stand on the shoulders of giants. So thank you, Lisa, for getting me started on that. But I want to shift just a bit, and I was shifting. I actually just want to say that we need to acknowledge the people who are lifting us and how they're doing that. Because when we do that, it's like we let go of our mooring and we let what's happened happen to us. Because I think some people are aware of a lift in consciousness and they're afraid, and so they hang on for dear life because it will change things. How many of you know, not yourself because you come to this church, how many of you know people who are afraid of change? And they just want it to stay the same because they can handle it. When we acknowledge what's lifting us, it's like letting go of our moorage. We get to rise easier. Now, we're going to rise up anyway, but it's going to be turbulent or it's going to be easy. We choose. And we choose by being grateful and knowing that it's happening. I was thinking about the pioneers that came to the West Coast and how grateful I am that they did, because I like the West Coast. I like it here. I'm grateful that I was born in Oregon. I'm grateful that I got to go to the big city, Seattle. I'm grateful that I like rain. That somebody decided to take the trek over the Rockies when it was not easy. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to the pioneers in our social movement. You know, we have pioneers in the material world, in our geology, but we also have pioneers in our sociology, those cultural pioneers. There's a movie out that I haven't seen. I don't know that I'll go see it, but I'm glad it was made, and it's about the suffragettes. I'm grateful. I get to vote. 200 years ago, that wasn't even a thought. I get to own property. That's new in the world, relatively speaking. I am grateful that those women put up with what they put up with so that I could have the life I have. I want to acknowledge that what they did lifted me, and I get to be grateful. We have religious pioneers. At the same time that Calvinism was staunchly ensconced in the United States, a man like Emerson was born. And he said things like, you know, there's an oversoul to which we all belong. There's a oneness. He wrote an essay on compensation, which basically says that whatever you're giving out, you're going to get back, and it shows up in the S training as what goes around comes around. But see, we were lifted up. I mean, we all know the law of karma now, but it wasn't talked about a lot when Emerson was writing about it. He lifted up philosophy for a long time, for a lot of us. He influenced Ernest Holmes. He was one of Ernest Holmes' first light bulbs, you might say. And Ernest Holmes influenced a man named Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, and now it's everywhere. Think positively. Now, we can go a little deeper than that, but you understand what I'm saying? We were lifted up by Emerson, who lifted up Holmes, who lifted up Norman Vincent Peale. And also, Ernest Holmes was the main teacher for a woman named Louise Hay, who popularized affirmations and not settling for what's happening in your body. Lift it up, lift it up, lift it up. What I've noticed is that in every class I teach, they start out at a little higher level because they're lifted up by people they didn't even know. The people who were before them in that class. When I started teaching Inward Journey, it was a great class. It's a better class now, and I'm not any better. But every student is influenced by the consciousness that was built up in that class. The same thing happens with Beyond Limits, with self-mastery, with spiritual practice, anything. We are lifted up. And I bet that in coming of age, every group is easier to work with because they stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before them the last year, and those giants were only 12. But they were giants because they shifted in consciousness, and that shift affects the future. We all know that, right? Well, one of the things that can get in our way with accepting the rising tide and the consciousness is that when we look at those people who came before us, we can, not you, but you know people who can become judgmental of those people. Because human beings are multifaceted and they have flaws as much as they have exquisite qualities, right? So one of my teachers, Dr. Peggy Bassett, said that everyone in your life is one of two things. There's only two types of people in your life: lovers or teachers. Now, sometimes teachers are lovers, and sometimes teachers aren't lovers, meaning they're here to love you or they're here to teach you. Now, so think of somebody you don't like and think of what class they're in. They're the teachers. But we can get so focused on the obstacles that they created in our life that we don't understand that those obstacles were also our teachers. Now, I'm getting to a point, and you're going to have a blessing in a minute, because that's what I promised you, we'd have an experience. Oftentimes, our family are our greatest teachers. Take a deep breath. And our family are human, and they are not perfect, just as we're not perfect. But what resided in everyone in our family was a perfection that was divine, that was the eternal idea of humanity that can never be squelched. And when we can acknowledge it in others, we can start to acknowledge it in ourselves. And when we start to know it in ourselves, we'll start to acknowledge it in others. And then the teaching becomes a blessing. I say that because as we grow up and we mature, sometimes we can look backwards and wonder why they didn't get their act together. How many of you have ever done that? Nobody? Just maybe I'll only bless a few people. This will be this you don't have to participate in this if you don't want to. But we can, you know, like I am having to wake up to all of the things that I'm still affected by, and sometimes I don't like what I'm affected by. But if I keep my attention on that, then I lose the blessing of pure life and love that flows through every human being. And then I lose the blessing that could flow through me too. And when I was over there listening to Lisa, I realized that maybe the reason I'm thinking of this blessing is because we are getting close to the winter solstice, and in the winter solstice, it's all about the ancestors. And so Carol Huntley I'm going to have to hope that she watches the YouTube of this, because she would love this, because she's all about the ancestors and facing north. I don't know where north is. Somebody will tell me. Facing north and letting myself be blessed by the ancestors and the white bones of their being. Who knows? Hi, Carol. Everyone else that's watching too. Hello. Right here, there's a donate now. Right here. Carol, you don't have to, but everybody else? So we're going to have a blessing. Who would like to be blessed? Great. To have the blessing, you must decide that you will go along with what I'm going to ask you to imagine. So every one of us can imagine things. For those of you that say you can't imagine, of course you can. If you got a call, no, they don't call you. If you got a letter from the IRS, you would immediately imagine the worst, wouldn't you? See, you can do it. You can imagine. If you're going to have an intention, you not only have an intention, you imagine it. So everybody, got your imagination? Turn the switch. Great. So close your eyes and receive the blessing. I'd like you to close your eyes and sit in your chair, be comfortable. And now, with me, imagine that you feel a hand on your right shoulder. But it is a left hand. A left hand is touching your shoulder, and not just touching it, don't just feel the weight of it, feel it kind of squeeze you. It just sort of squeezes a little bit, just to let you know that someone is there. Like if you wanted to walk behind somebody, you'd let them know you were there. You just would touch them on the shoulder and give them a squeeze. Have that hand give you a squeeze. It's a left hand on your right shoulder. And now on your left shoulder, you feel a right hand. Something squeezing you on your left shoulder. Have it, feel the pressure, imagine the pressure. Imagine the sweet squeeze. It's a gentle, I'm here. Nothing said, but it's definitely there. This is your father and your mother. Whether they're living or they're not, their essence is here. Their essence is telling you they're behind you, they have your back. Whether you knew your mother or your father, their essence knew you, and their essence still knows you. You could have been separated at birth from your biological parents, but their essence, the eternal aspect of God that lives in them and will always live in them and is them, knows you. They found you, and they are now behind you. Feel those hands like support. Like, I got ya. I am here with you. And now, feel as though something just got more intense. And what got more intense is that your grandparents are now standing behind your parents. So there are now 6 people behind you, 2 with their hands on your shoulder, and then your grandparents have their hands on the shoulders of your parents. And now your great-grandparents are behind you, loving your grandparents who can love your parents who can now love you. And now your great-great-grandparents are behind you, loving your grandparents so they could love your grandparents. Oh, and it goes on until you finally get to the parents. I get confused in this. And then 32 people are behind you, behind the 16 great-grandparents and the 8 grandparents and the 4 and the 2, and they're behind you. And then another generation. And then another generation. So at the very last of the 7 generations, there are 128 people blessing 64, who bless 32, who bless 16, who bless 8, who bless 4, who bless your parents. And your parents are blessing you. Now allow the intention to live, because every one of them had an intention to live. Let that intention flow from them and cascade down to you. And be filled with the blessing of the ancestors. Feel it. And now very lightly, one of your parents is going to whisper something in your ear. They're going to say to you something that you need to hear. Let them say that now. And then they withdraw their hands. and the parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents and the great-great-grandparents and all the generations for 7 moving back from you fade back into whatever they're doing because they are still alive, because life is eternal and love is immortal, and what they've left you with is the fullness of their life and the greatness of their love. Receive that now. And as you allow yourself to be filled with their love and their life, imagine that it is lifting you. Because that's what life does. Life gives to life. And you have allowed the life of your ancestors to lift you just a bit. And now in your heart of hearts, say thank you to them. For they are present. And they hear. And together let us say, and so it is. So in a way, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and those are our lineage. It seems like they are blessing and the flow is going down, but it's really, we have stepped up. We learn from them. We learn from them. We learn from them. And they lifted us up, even if they didn't think they were. Even if they didn't want to. It's the way life is. Chickens may not want to lay an egg. It's going to happen. Until it doesn't. So if we stand on the shoulders of others, we also have the opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with others, with fellow journeyers. In a spiritual community, which we talked about at the beginning, if our vision is to have a spiritual community, then we stand shoulder to shoulder with other beings on this spiritual unfoldment journey. Now, how can we do that? Well, one way that we might do that is that we allow others to support us, not just through their osmosis, because some things can happen in this room, it's just osmosis. It just sort of happens. Well, a lady was here, she sat right where Stephen is, and she was here first service, and we were talking about good stuff, and she stood up, and she said, "This is the good thing, I've never been here before, but I know it's just awesome." And then I broke into, God is an awesome God. And the first service sang with me because I needed a glee moment. And so she had her good, I had my good. And the rest of the congregation sang along or tried to ignore my voice. Anyway, but it was a good thing. But see, she got it because of the osmosis. That just sometimes you just get it. How many of you have been around people where when you're around them, you feel more confident in yourself? Nothing said, but it happens. There's that can happen in a spiritual community. But a spiritual community, especially this one, has practices. Ernest Holmes said that we should be the prayingest people on the planet. And so we have a practice of praying for one another. So if you need support, you can stand shoulder to shoulder with our prayer practitioners and put in a request in the ministry of prayer, and people will be praying for you. Not one, a bunch. You can, I forgot, I was so carried away in between services. I was going to bring one of my cards, and my card, on the back of it, my personal business card, has the prayer line on it. And if you call into the prayer line, there's anywhere between 3 and 8 people praying for you that day. I had an opportunity to talk to a young person who is, was going through some family stuff. And she came to see me, and she's a teenager. She's going through family stuff. I told her I'd pray for her. And I said, if you could always call the prayer line. And she didn't even know about the prayer line. So I gave her a card. A lot of people need this. I gave her a stack. And she took them all. She was so excited. She was going to pass them out to people because people need prayer. She's so smart. We do. We get by with a little help from our friends. Dated myself. There I go. But we can do that so we can be supported by osmosis. We can be supported through prayer, through the prayer ministry of prayer, through the prayer line, through the inspiration line, whatever it takes. You can have a prayer partner. If you don't have a prayer partner, have an intention to have a prayer partner. And someone's going to start showing up that you know you could trust with your life's ambitions and intentions. And they can know the truth for you. Let me give you an idea of how this works, another idea. There are two people in our congregation who had opportunities to experience getting healthy last week. And kind of in a miraculous way, they found their way to Swedish. They happened to be prayer partners, and what's really funny is that they ended up like 2 floors away from each other, and they still got to talk to each other on Thursday and do prayer together. Isn't that amazing? But here's one of them. This is what she said. And I got this because she sent this out to a lot of people. She didn't ask for the prayer, but we were praying for her, and this went out to her classmates and some others. I'll try to tell you what I felt like and what it was like to be in the ER with my surgery the next day. I knew that you guys had my back and carried the load for me in your prayers. I was not fearful. I could be in the present instead and appreciate the awesome medical care I was getting. I could allay my fears because I knew that you were powerful. I'm so grateful to every one of you. That's what happens when we know that we can turn to prayer and be lifted on the wings of prayer. We don't need to. You don't have to. You can always go at it alone. You don't need God. I mean, really. But I will tell you, in my life, anything goes better with God. Anything. Whether I am up, I feel better when I can celebrate with God, and when things are down, I know I won't stay there. Because I know that everything goes better with that thing that's greater than myself. So I want to give you the opportunity to experience that. And why is it that second service goes so much longer than first service? How crazy is this? Anyway, so who has a prayer request? Who has a prayer request? Who needs something? Yes, what do you need? You need to practice forgiveness. And what do you need? Oh, what do you need?
I'm having hip surgery in a few weeks.
Oh, easy prayer. Easy breezy prayer. Okay, forgiveness, hip surgery.
I need harmony with my condo association.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that one. But anyway, harmony with others. Great. Okay, so come up here quickly, Ann. And come up here. So, but get in queue. I want you to have the experience of this. So, Ann, you are every woman.
Okay.
So anyone that needs harmony, let her accept it for herself and everyone else. This is harmony with those people that it seems to be hard to be harmonious with. Anybody got that? Okay. Now, I need people who know harmony. Who have walked over that bridge and gone from inharmony to harmony. Who's done that? You stand up. All of you that have done that, come on, stand up, up. Share your consciousness. Come on, up. Everyone that's gone from inharmony to I got it. I want you to fill it up. I want you to experience it again. Experience what it was like to go from I don't have it to I have it. Now put that in your solar plexus. So you start to feel it in your body as well as your mind. Now when you have it there, I want you to take your hands, put them up, direct them this way towards Ann, who's accepting it not only for herself but everybody in the room, and give her the experience of harmony. We can all do that. It works best if your eyes are open. The eyes are the window of the soul. Look at Ann. And let that energy flow to her. Ann, can you feel it? Great. Are you willing to accept it for yourself and others? Great. You may sit down. Whew. And you are forgiveness? Oh, good. I can do this. Okay, so you want to forgive somebody?
A lot of people.
Great. Oh, I love it. I'm not going to forgive. I'm not going to forgive. I'm not going to forgive. It's like a, Gollum. Oh, my precious, my unforgiveness. My unforgiveness. Oh, nobody can take it from me. All right, so. Who has forgiven the unforgivable? Stand up. Feel it in your solar plexus. And what's your name again? Keela. All right, so I want you to feel it, and when you feel it in your solar plexus, I want you to take it and move it out through your hands and direct it towards Keela. Keela, will you accept this for yourself and everybody else in the room who can't forgive? You need to say yes. Okay. She had to think about it. I love this. Okay, now move the forgiveness into Keela. Just know what it's like to just say, it is no more, it's gone. And let us know when you feel it. Great. So thank you for accepting this for yourself and for everyone else in the room who has a hard time forgiving. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and we had hip surgery woman. Come on.
Get on up.
So, come on, stand over here. And also, who else is faced with a surgery pretty soon? Come on up. You don't have to tell us what it is. Stand right over there. Blip, 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 blip. I love it. This. Do you know that I can move my horses around with my finger? It's harder to move people than my horses. 1,200 pounds, and I can go like this, and they go, okay. Okay, so for all of you that had a very successful surgery and recovered almost immediately, if you have those two things, stand up. Look at all these people who've done it. And now let's see these people. Hold it in your solar plexus. Feel what it felt like to know that it was all done and you were on the road to recovery. And now share it with these people. Okay, can you feel it? Rose, can you feel it? Great. So accept it for yourself and everyone else that may have been too afraid to stand up or not, or too far back. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. So that's what a spiritual community does for each other. We hold each other in such a way that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though the person going through the tunnel may not be able to see it yet. So perhaps for all of you that have gone through things, how many of you went through a thing at least last year? A thing. Like a big thing. How many of you went through a big thing last year? Maybe you went through a big thing last year so that you could rise up and help others rise up in the future. Maybe you allow yourself to be supported in the present so that you can support someone else in the future. That we share this rising consciousness. Because I believe that if you're in this center and you went through something, I bet you learned something. And you don't have to share what you learned unless someone asks you. But just in the learning, you shifted consciousness. So that's the last thing that I want to share with you is that we allow ourselves to be strong shoulders for others to stand on. Jack Kornfield, who is one of my favorite Buddhist psychologists, started out as a Buddhist monk and then became a psychologist. He said, it is not within everyone's power to save the whole world, but it is within your power to add whatever you can with a loving and caring and peaceful heart to the world, your piece of the pie. And so as we shift, we become the place where someone else is encouraged along the way. There are a lot of ways you can do this. If you're in recovery organization, a 12-step group, you might become a sponsor. You might do what I do, which is when I go to the grocery store, I always take a few more cans than I need, especially protein, so that I have something to give to the food bank. Because there are people that need to be lifted just by having a full stomach. So we can do it in all sorts of ways. Some of you might want to become prayer practitioners. Some of you might want to join the Create a Better World team and do things like work with animals that have been abused. I mean, there's all sorts of ways. But when you're full, then you become the place that helps someone else become full and satisfied. So we stand on the shoulders of giants. We are in league with giants. And then we lift other people up to know that they too are giants. It's a cycle. That's just what it is. If you look at nature, and that's what Emerson would do, he looked at nature and he said, you know, there's a law of compensation and that there's a law of giving and receiving. We have to give, but we have to receive so we can give, so we can receive. Thank you, every one of you who were so brave to say, I need this blessing. And thank you, everyone who was so brave to just say, you know what, I've had this. I know what it's like to be on the other side. Thank you for the blessings that are happening in this room. And so I just speak my word that I bless. I recognize what's happening in the room, and I know that it's God moving in us. And I am so grateful. And so I give thanks that everyone here, if they accept it, receives a blessing this day beyond what they may have thought of. And the blessing is personally designed for them by the Spirit of God that knows them. Ah, how good it is. And so it is.